you want to get this cabbage? Cool.
Probably should get like a knife or something.
Oh, yeah. It's dump day, so we're on the
Transfer station's right up there.
Yeah. Locals don't know that this is Hillside Road, it's Dump Road. We're like, oh, great.
Is it on the way to the dump? Like, yeah. That white thing by the dump?
Yeah. So we're here in East Poultney, which we call the heart of the Southwest Kingdom of Vermont. My grandparents got married in this White House right behind us. My grandparents were married here in the 40s before my grandfather went off to World War II. And then they came back here, and my grandfather was a guidance counselor at Poultney High School. So that's sort of my roots in this area. Yeah, so we live in a little yurt down here that was constructed in New Hampshire by this company called Two Girls Yurts. Through the spring and late into the fall, we're producing most of our own vegetables, and yeah, it's great. It's something that neither of us have ever done before, and we're not by any means experts at it, but apparently if you just take a bunch of horse poop and pile it up, it works pretty well. So our yurt's off the grid, and so we have no running water, and that's our electricity. And in the summer we have a hose that just is tapped into a pond across the street. And then in the winter, that hose freezes up, and we have a hole that's dug back here that we use a sledgehammer, and we smash a hole in the ice and like dig the water out.
Or we just melt snow. Like hopefully there's enough.
Snow,
hopefully there's enough like clean snow around. But if
it's like November, there's no snow.
Yeah, cold but no snow.
You're getting water out of the hole. Yeah, so yeah, that whole thing's been a learning curve. We've never lived off the grid before, but we're 3.5 years in, and it's fine. It's not. I mean, people make it out like it's this big terrible thing, but I don't know. I think living in a cubicle or like working in a cubicle is way worse than bashing your water out of a hole. Yeah. So it's a trade-off. Everything's a trade-off.
So we're in a sugar bush, which is just a stand of maple sugar trees. And so he tapped all these trees, and then the shop, which we'll go see, is the old sugar house, which he built in the 80s. Wow. Nice.
It's important to have OSHA approved footwear on to do this. This is just a simple work building, and it was originally built as sort of the low point in the property, so all the sugar maple trees could drain down to this spot. So it's kind of in this dark little hollow, but 8 acres of maples had to come down, have tap lines flow down here, and there was a big propane boiler inside of the shop that would reduce the sap into syrup. And so when the shop was sort of in its original guise, there would have been a cupola on top to let steam escape, and a tree smashed that. But it was just this sort of darker gray building, the sort of central building. And then we had friends help us timber frame out the front little porch thing. And then my dad and I built this side storage unit. And so we've just sort of added on as we've needed to, and tried to keep the materials the same, which is hemlock from this area that was milled locally. And so when these additions age, they will look like the original structure. I'll kill this music. So this is the inside of our little shop. It's about 320 square feet, and in the middle of this, almost taking up the entire space, was a boiler that would reduce the sap down and turn it into syrup. So it was like when I would come in here as a kid, you had a maybe 3-foot section of floor you could walk on because the sap pan was that big.
James said we're on 8 acres of land, and our property is sort of long, skinny back, and there's a ridge line over there. So we did hand build some sketchy trails that are out there, but we also have a bunch of camping sites, so very primitive campsites, literally just kind of just the flat spots we raked, pulled the sticks and stuff out. But when we have events here, which we try to do, a handful a year, we invite people to come camp on the property. So we tried to kind of find a way to use all the property that we have. Some of it's a swamp, and then some of it's a huge blackberry bramble. So those are like untouchable zones. But a lot of it is really beautiful, and just to try to share it with people, and then allow people to get a little taste of being in Vermont. And so there's a trail that kind of comes down through there, and then this is sort of an entrance. They're just sort of like anywhere that we could do one.
Yeah. Oh, we got some blackberries.
Yeah.
Nice.
So all of this is like a blackberry bramble, pretty much. Like they've just taken over this whole part of the property. So we just let them have it.
I always liked bike shops in the 80s back when bike shops had frames on the walls, and sort of like the plethora of examples that they would have would always just be sort of inspirational, I thought. And my background is fine art. Like I have 2 worthless degrees, not worthless, but like I don't use them per se in my regular life. Sort of treating this space like a gallery was interesting to me. Like they should be like an inspiration gallery. In terms of like other aesthetic, it's just like stuff we had. There's nothing contrived here. It's like, oh, we got some boxes, we got this weird old suitcase.
Yeah, well, you inherited a bunch of old decoys from your grandfather, so it was like bringing the decoys back in here, and just, it's all stuff that we like. And then also, I think our shop is sort of a collection of what we think are all of the best things that the bike industry has to offer. So typically, I think most people's experience when you go into a bike shop is that, they're going to have some of the more basic stuff that's, more budget friendly or whatever. And then maybe there'll be like one cool thing, like, oh, they had Brooks saddles in there. That's awesome. But then, people come in here and they're like, oh, it's like a candy store. Like, they're like, I just can't stop looking at things. Like, it's all of the cool things in one place, and you get to touch them and see them and feel it. And like, you never see this many Paul clampers in one space, typically.
So we started Analog about 3.5, 4 years ago, and it started just in our apartment in Frederick, but with the intention that we would move it here. We used to run like an espresso / bike shop in Frederick, and that was cool, but it became much more of like a coffee shop than a bike shop. And Candice and I were in it for the bikes. And so we said, man, the bike side of this is really successful. I think we could grow our web presence and just move out to the middle of nowhere out here in Vermont and give it a go. So Analog is it's a little off-the-grid bike shop that we make bikes for adventure riding, for gravel riding, sort of anything outside of racing. We're just not interested in racing. So the bikes have to be comfortable, and they have to be hyper reliable to be able to ride them in what we consider to be some of the hardest terrain in the country, which is Vermont. If a bike's going to break or have a mechanical, it's going to have that issue here. So our idea is to sort of take bikes that are designed for this area and export them to whoever is interested in them, so that they can get something that's as reliable as possible wherever they are, and as comfortable as possible wherever they are. And that idea has grown from just being bikes that other brands make, that we then put together and custom build and sell, to us developing our own brand. So we have a component brand and a bike frame brand and like a bag line as well. And we built those sort of out of a frustration for what was commercially available. This is Tanglefoot Moonshiner. This has been the longest in development. This has been about 3 years in development. to have a bike designed for essentially riding down a trout stream that happens to be a road, you need a specific kind of bike to do that well and safely and feel like you're in control. And so really big tires, the bottom bracket, this guy is high off the ground so you can pedal through a bunch of rocks. If you have to come off the saddle abruptly, this bent top tube means you're not going to rack yourself. And the bike's kind of long, which promotes stability. And so it's really designed for this kind of riding. You can ride at a bunch of other places as well, but like the grossest terrain possible, you could ride this guy on.
Also, you know, having a connection to your bike, going through the custom process, and then coming out with something that just makes you happy even to look at, and then you ride it and it feels awesome too, and then you go out and try something new and it performs well. You know, I think all those things, it just makes you want to ride your bike more.
We think that Analog is unique in that it's this pretty cool little weird bike shop in the middle of nowhere, but we're surrounded by this really friendly community, and the local riding community especially is incredibly welcoming, incredibly friendly. So you can come here, camp, hang out, test ride bikes on really beautiful trails. It's a pretty unique experience. Most bike shop test rides take place in a parking lot.
I think that was excellent. That was great.
Tour of the restroom?
Oh, yeah.
No. No.
Maybe not, yeah.